Secretary will be watching at every stage kung saan slow-moving pa necessarily, tapos kung saan mas bibilis. He's really on top of it. And it's nice to note, nice is a...
Secretary of Education Sonny Angara, muling pinahanga ang mga mambabata sa loob ng Senado dahil sa ipinakitang husay sa pagdadala sa ahensya ng DepEd. Pero bago ang lahat, maaari kayong mag-subscribe para maging updated sa mga issue at bagong mga balita. Hinahangaan nga ng ilang mambabata sa Senado ang dating kasamahang senator noon na ngayon isa ng Secretary of Education na si Sonny Angara. Dahil sa ipinakitang galing na ipinamalas ito sa pamumuno ng ahensya ng DepEd. Mga plano at proyekto ni Angara, kinabibiliban. Narito ang buong detalye.
The first wish list amounts to around 60 billion, Your Honor. For human resources, the Bureau of Human Resources and Development is requesting 3.5 billion for the NAEAP, and for career pathways for our non-teaching personnel, Your Honor, meaning the ability to create new positions so that some of our long-time personnel could be promoted. Also asking for additional funds for the training of the Matatag curriculum, for the induction program for new teachers, and for career progression development programs. The Bureau of Curriculum is asking for a total of 6 billion, representing to fund textbooks for grade 3, because originally grade 3 was not part of the rollout of the Matatag for next year, but it was Congress prodded the inclusion of grade 3 for next year's pilot. The establishment of a child find system to identify, locate, and evaluate learners with disabilities. Additional compensation for our madrasa teachers, and other programs. And of course, the big item also is for an 8-week literacy and numeracy program of around 4.8 billion, which is being discussed in the lower house and perhaps in this house as well, Your Honor. Operations Strand is asking for an additional around 260 million for the Palarang Pambansa, which will be held in Ilocos Norte, and an additional fund allocation for the newly created Negros Island region. The Administrative Service or Strand is asking for 12.6 billion for additional computerization packages, computer packages. Our Legal Strand is asking for 88 million for the acquisition of additional plantilla items, and for the titling and school sites, the ability to acquire more school sites and or facilitate the legal processes for titling, Your Honor. And our Infrastructure Strand is asking for an additional 36.8 billion for the construction of an additional 12,000 classrooms, and to ensure available funding for the Infrastructure for Safer and Resilient Schools project, which is a foreign-funded project under the World Bank, Madam Chair. In the supplemental wish list, they've included the school-based feeding program to the tune of 7.3 billion to be able to have more days and feed more children. An additional 5 million for the drug education program. And for finance, they're asking for an additional 384 million to increase the subsidies for teachers, which has remained the same amount for a decade now, I think. An additional 1.9 billion for the senior high school voucher program. An additional 100 million to finally get the Philippine Qualifications Framework Coordinating Council going, Your Honor. That's a law passed as early as 2018, but has yet to get really fully started and has no staffing component, full-time staffing component as of the moment. So these are some of the items, Your Honor. It's broken down, and we'll be happy to furnish more details. Next slide, please. This is the wish list of our attached agencies. An additional 289 for the NBDB, an additional 132 million for the NCCT, an additional 1.6 billion for the National Museum, an additional 22 million for the Philippine High School for the Arts, an additional 22 million for the ECCD, an additional 209 million for the National Academy of Sports for their student athletes insurance, dormitory facility, kitchen and dining facility, and health services. For the ECCD, it's for institutional development and human resource development, and for the National Child Development Center. For the Philippine High School for the Arts, it's for personnel benefits, food supplies, transportation expenses, and communications equipment. For the National Museum, it's for new component museums, machinery and equipment, and transportation equipment. For the NCCT, it's for rent and lease expenses, procurement of manpower services, and the conduct of research and media policy training. For the Book Development Board, this is for the Philippine Book Festival and the Book Nook project. Your Honors, Madam Chair. Next slide, please. So I think that's it for the presentation, Madam Chair. We thank you very much and the committee
Of
for
the committee,
giving us the
and
time.
we're ready to accept questions from the members of the committee and Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary, for the presentation. Majority Floor Leader, are you ready? Would you like to go first?
I just have one question.
Okay.
I'm in full support of the budgetary outlay request of the new secretary. And I see this is not an easy gimme basket using basketball parlance, Madam Chair. I just saw the video presentation relative to the president speaking about using the buzzword digitalization. And looking at the records I have here in front of me, it would seem that one of the items on DepEd's wish list for 2025 is a 12.6 billion budget for the computerization program. But when I took some notes, I heard the presentation of the good secretary. 18,325 schools without internet access. And the wish list is for a 9.2 billion pesos budgetary request. So how would you reconcile now 12.6 billion with 9.2 billion? Pasok na ba ho yun doon sa pangangailangan na yon? And then I would further add to the confusion a news article, inabutan na lang to ni Secretary Sonny, hindi naman niya kasalanan ito, na meron pa lang 4 years ago, meron pang 1.5 million units of laptops somewhere out there in some warehouses unutilized. So how would you reconcile all this? I recall having heard during my days as Blue Ribbon, having conducted an investigation because of a resolution filed by my seatmate here about some laptops also. So reconcile po natin. Ano pa talaga yung kailangan? 12.6 or 9.5? O magkasama na yon? And-
Pagkasama ho yun, syempre pag nasa budget ho ng 2025 yung 12 billion, pero kulang pa rin yun to provide computers to all our learners. I think even with the 9, kulang pa rin. Pero we want to speed up the process kasi nga yun nga ang gusto ni Pangulo. And of course, we were not active in the preparation of this budget, Madam Chair, Your Honor. So we just wanted to include that in the wish list because these are the priorities of the President as well as the priorities of the department. Seeing how increased digitalization can help us leapfrog some of the traditional resource gaps, Your Honor, given that there are schools which are doing double shifting, triple shifting. Perhaps with increased digitalization, these kids can benefit from newer technologies, software, analytics, artificial intelligence, even at some point where even their work at home can be monitored by their teachers. And we've seen software like Khan Academy. We have 33 pilot schools, Your Honor. Nakabisita na ho si Chairman Win, si Senator Pia. I'm not sure if she was able to visit the schools which have Khan, but kitang-kita mo, it really assists not only our learners but also our teachers because real time, pagkakuha nung bata nung quizzes, the results are already reflected, the analytics reflect the information, yung performance ng bata compared to last year, his performance compared to his class, And it can also the newer CAN software, the CanMigo, that's the AI tutors, artificial intelligence tutors. Parang may teacher na yung bata kahit may shortage tayo ng teachers. With this can help supplement some of these resource gaps, Your Honor. So kasi parang hindi maganda yung naging karanasan natin nung pandemya na the digital divide was accentuated. Parang we were giving learning modules, but really, hindi natin na-monitor kung natututo yung bata habang nasa bahay siya. And I note that the chair was a big factor into the return to schools as well. Both chairs. The chair of the subcommittee as well as the chair of the Basic Education Committee were very adamant that our kids must return to schools in 2022, I remember. So that was a good development. But at the same time, the resource gaps remain, Your Honor, and we see digitalization as a way out or a way to leapfrog. Diba? Leapfrog is a word often used for technology because it allows you to shortcut some of the solutions, Your Honor. Doon naman sa pangalawang tanong, yung 1.5 million units, we naabutan natin yan, and that dates back to 2020 and 2021, Your Honor. It's not only laptops, it's also furniture as well as textbooks, Your Honor. This is part of the parang one of the programs of the Briones administration in DepEd was to separate the logistics provider, meaning the traditional method of procurement was to kung sino yung magbibid at mananalo, yun ang magdi-deliver. Pero may inintroduce na kakaibang programa under Secretary Briones, which was the logistics provider. Meaning lahat po nung logistics was to be provided by other companies. But it got into a dispute and things were not delivered on time. So as a product of this is the Transpac, we call it the Transpac deal because that's the name of the corporation or the logistics provider. At dahil hindi na natuloy yung mga ibang kontrata, hindi na deliver nung Transpac. So what we've done is we've talked to the Air Force and to other government agencies as well as private individuals to help get these items out kasi sabi nga nila yung IT equipment has a lifespan and we might be exceeding that lifespan if we do not act quickly on it, Your Honor. So with respect to the IT packages, I think we're over 50% have been removed from the warehouse. With respect to the other items which are bigger, the furniture, I think we're only at 10%. But those are the more challenging things. But having said that, since the news came out, we've received many offers from local government officials to take the items off our hands. So that helps. I think we'll be able to speed up the removal of these items from the warehouse, Your Honor, Madam Chair.
Just one quick follow-up question. Ito pong 18,325 schools without internet access or short of computers. Ano po yung pwedeng maitulong ng mga local government units through our local school boards? Hindi kasi yung mga LGUs po, Madam Chair, talagang gusto rin nila magkaroon ng internet access po itong ating mga eskwelahan. So
Yes.
will that make your job easier pag yung tumulong na siguro yung mga LGUs? Kasama po ba to sa polisiya ninyo, Madam Chair?
Definitely, Your Honor. I think there are bills to amend the SEF to expand the menu, but even unamended, you've been the chair of the Committee on Local Government. Alam nyo na nakita nyo na maraming lokal na gobyerno na nakakatulong po ng malaki sa ating mga schools. Nagbibigay sila ng IT equipment, sinasagot nila yung data plans minsan. Yung iba nagbibigay ng smart TVs. So these are all very helpful, Your Honors. Yung iba nagko-construct pa ng computer labs at yung iba nagbibigay din ng teachers through the SEF, Your Honor. So all of these are very helpful and help address the resource gaps we face, Your Honor.
Chair, I have no further questions. I am fully supportive of the budget of the new DepEd leadership, and I yield the floor some of our colleagues here who are more knowledgeable as to the basics of DepEd. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Before I give the floor to Senator Risa, just a follow-up question on the topic raised by the majority floor leader on the request for increased budget for computerization. No? The chairman mentioned the news report about the findings that there were equipment, I guess computers, laptops that were in storage and were not released. So if we're able to find additional budget for the request, is his honor fairly confident that these issues that hounded the previous leadership, you have staff and a plan in place so that we can address it? Because we're very happy to support, as you know, but we know that logistics, warehousing is really an issue. I mean, it's something we probably don't think about too much. We think if you have the funding, it's as simple as that. So if his
Madam
honor
Chair,
is fairly confident, of course, we're happy to support.
Yes, yes, Madam Chair. I think with some of the reforms we'll be putting in place, I think we can prevent a repeat of some of these occurrences. First of all, as a major policy, we're no longer adopting that innovation of having a separate logistics provider. I think it's much simpler to revert to the old system where the winning bidder or supplier is the one who has to provide the delivery, Your Honor. And given that we're going to engage in early procurement activities, they also have to take care of the warehousing and the delivery in such a way that we provide enough allowance for them, to give enough time for them to deliver come the first day of school in 2025, but also to manage their time for their deliveries, because we don't want that to be a problem of the department, Your Honor. So under the new contracts and the new biddings to be undertaken, dapat sagot yon ng mga suppliers, Your Honor. Hindi na I think it was a unnecessarily complicated structure, Your Honor.
Senator Sherwin and I have the same follow-up question, so I'll just ask it. In the problematic issue that you just inherited, was there only one logistics provider? Is that why? Parang na-bottleneck ba sa kanya or na-hostage sa kanya?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
And yet, if there are multiple suppliers, then you would also have, and they're in charge for delivering, then you would also have multiple
Contracts.
contracts for
Yes,
the
Your Honor.
delivery
And then
itself.
perhaps
So
the diverse. Yes.
even if one was problematic, you would still have all these others being delivered. Wow.
I think so. I would
Okay.
agree, Your Honor, Madam Chair.
Okay. So like I'm just out of curiosity, like, so how many suppliers, winning bidders, would there be for the supply itself, or at least in the previous contract?
Just for furniture alone, there are 5, Your Honor.
There were 5.
Yes.
And then only one.
For computers, how many?
5 suppliers
For
the
computers, over
computers.
5, Your Honor.
But-
So multiple.
Over 5.
Yes.
Over 5, but
Or-
like over 5 under 10 or over 5 up to 50? Ano ba?
Maybe we can ask our procurement USEC
Yeah,
stand.
just if you know, if
Yeah,
not,
just a
let
ballpark
me a
figure of
note
how many
later.
suppliers were involved in the Transpac logistics for computers.
No, how many,
Madam Chair,
to be
there are
clear,
12.
how many,
With your
Okay.
permission, ma'am, can we recognize
let
USEC Chan?
me-
Yeah.
is it Attorney Chan? Attorney Chan. So just to be clear, how many suppliers of the computers itself, and then how many logistics providers?
Basically, there is one logistic provider because it was a framework agreement. So all these suppliers listed, there are 12 suppliers. There is one logistics provider who will pick up the goods
Okay.
from the suppliers
So
and then
and it was a fa-
consolidate in one
Okay, and it
warehouse.
was a failure of the logistics
Yes.
supplier.
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
Wow. Yes.
Mr. Chan, just one quick follow-up question. If you still have the computers in the warehouses of the logistics suppliers for 4 years, can this computer still be rebooted, utilized, or would you need additional budget to have this in operation? O baka mas mura pang bumili ng bago kaysa baka luma na to. Yun lang po yung tanong ko, Madam Chair.
Well, definitely, they're older models, Your Honor. But according to our IT, kaya naman i-reboot or i-repurpose. Of course, it won't be as good as the newer computers, Your Honor.
These were just contracted, these were supply contracts just in the last 4 years, so not older than.
Actually, some of the contracts date back to
even older.
2017, 2018, 2019, Your
Oh,
Honor.
really?
But the items have been there physically since 2020 and 20.
Ed family. Just a quick opening word, Madam Chair, colleagues, Secretary Sonny, and the DepEd family, to our resource persons, magandang araw sa ating lahat. Wala pa man sa first 100 days sa kanyang tanggapan, si Secretary Sonny, it seems that our former colleague is providing the leadership 19 to 23 billion in 2021, 32.59 billion in 2022, and 38.16 billion in 2023. Sa tagal nating lahat sa serbisyo, alam natin na, well, no single agency can spend 100% of its fund. Pero nag-peak ang DepEd ng 97% at some point, and the figures I cited are too big to be ignored. I'm sure the Secretary shares the same fiscal concern that the unobligated funds are sufficient to close some resource gaps within the agency or provide the full budgets of other smaller agencies. So may we know, Madam Chair, ano yung mga factors na nagko-constrain sa DepEd para i-fully obligate ang said allotments, at anong actions ang maaasahan natin sa Good Secretary para siguruhin yung optimal use ng mga resources na ipinagkakaloob sa DepEd?
Yeah, that's a great question, Madam Chair, Sen.Risa. Thank you. And thank you to the Majority Leader for his kind words. And thank you to you, Madam Chair, for Sen.Risa, for also for the kind words. We much appreciated po yun. But again, it's a great question, and there are large amounts which are unobligated and unutilized. And I think it's also a function of how large the agency is. We have multiple. I think we have the most number of implementing units in terms of budgetary usage, Your Honor. This includes the regions. We have 16 regions, excluding BARM. We have 218 school divisions, Your Honor. So these are some of the implementing units, and we have to reconcile and make sure that everyone is efficient on the ground, Madam Chair, Your Honor. So that's a challenge, how to make us more agile, and I've alluded to it earlier, yung sana yung early procurement mag-engage with tayo, because we see other departments doing that, meaning hindi pa tapos yung ongoing yung pagdedebate ng NEP or ng GAA, pero meron ng ginagawang mga preliminary activities ang ating mga ahensya in terms of early procurement. They are doing market scoping, they are advertising, anything short of award actually, Madam Chair. So pagpasok po ng bagong taon, pwede nang i-award, or in terms kung infrastructure ito, pwede na mag-award and then mag-construct, because that I think that has been one of the major challenges of the department in the last few decades, is how to be more efficient in terms of time, in terms of usage of resources, Sen.Risa, Madam Chair. Kaya especially now that we are short of buildable space, we are going higher with our classrooms, and these take longer, not only in terms of actual construction, but also in terms of preparatory activities, yung soil testing, etc., and planning, Madam Chair. So we have to be more efficient actually with the demands of the future, the demands of urbanization, etc. So having said that, some of the we will definitely work very hard to be more efficient organization going forward, Your Honor, Madam Chair. Pero meron talagang items na slow moving in the early part of the year because it's related to the school year. Ito pong, so meaning magagastos mo yung first semester, pero yung for the succeeding semesters, they wait until the next year to be spent. So some of these are the school-based feeding program, the voucher programs, the human resource development and school operations, kasi dependent ho yan sa school year. So if you look at, for example, the voucher program, as of August 31, yung obligation rate niya is only 6.5%, but by the end of the year, it will go up to 97%. Yun pong school-based feeding, it's only around 11% at as of August 31. If you look at the basic education 82.5% by the end of the year. National Reading Program, the National Learning Camp, National Learning Recovery, from 4.7% as of August 31, it will go up to almost 70% by the end of the fiscal year, Your Honor. Tapos itong training for matatag, teacher training, it's only at 3.91% as of August 31, but it will go up again to almost 70% by the end of the year. So yun yung school year calendar dependent programs. Na talagang by design and by operation in fact, they really are spent at the end of the year and towards the end of the fiscal year, Your Honor. And there are some of the slow-moving programs also, as mentioned earlier, are the procurement-heavy programs. So ito po yung textbooks, yung learning tools and equipment, science equipment, computerization, yung TechVoc livelihood po. These are really massive biddings, and because they are designed, they're really large bidding. So we're actually, one of the internal debates within the department is whether to regionalize and to how local can we go in terms of this. Of course, it sounds very nice in theory, but in practice, there are more decision makers and there are more things that could go wrong actually on the ground. So we have to balance all these considerations when we make the decisions, Your Honor. Efficiency, as well as the efficiency not only in procurement, but also in terms of decision making and in terms of exacting accountability, Your Honor. So yeah, yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and good Secretary. And also for walking the committee through yung, in a way, timed motion ng disbursement, no? And sa DepEd. And it's just good to know that the Secretary will be watching at every stage kung saan slow-moving pa necessarily, tapos kung saan mas bibilis, he's really on top of it. And it's nice to note, nice is a trite word, pero not just in terms of sentimental value, pero in a way, in terms of legacy na yung isa sa mga huling batas na sinepard ng Good Secretary, yung bagong Government Procurement Reform Act. Siguro yung DepEd ngayon under his leadership now as a secretary, ang isa sa nagtetest nun, ang nag-i-implement nun, including dun sa early procurement and then making each stage more efficient. So maraming salamat para doon, Secretary. Dako ako dun sa COA accounting deficiencies o pondo sa edukasyon hindi nagamit ng wasto. So mula sa husto, more quantitative, sa wasto, more qualitative. So in the report submitted to us by our LBRMO, it took note of a total of 229 billion pesos accounting deficiencies flagged by COA for fiscal year 2023. The said amount, if my calculation is correct, is equivalent to almost 30% of the total funds given to DepEd for the said year. Ilan sa napansin namin, Madam Chair, Secretary, iyong unremitted 3.79 billion pesos premium contributions and loan amortizations sa GSIS, PhilHealth at Pag-ibig, unliquidated cash advances amounting to 6.96 billion pesos, unsettled suspension, disallowances and charges amounting to 12.3 billion pesos, irregular, unnecessary, and excessive expenditures amounting to 209 million pesos. If these are correct, nakakalula ang bilyon o milyong pisong halaga na hindi nagamit ng husto at wasto. Now, I know that DepEd hasn't been given sufficient time yet to address these issues, but may we know from the Good Secretary mga updates po sa mga accounting deficiencies, lalo na yung usapin ng unremitted contributions at amortization na mahalaga para sa mga kawani ng kagawaran at maging sa pagpupondo ng mga naturang GOCCs, Madam Chair.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you for the question, Madam Chair, Sen.Risa. This amount you stated reflects the recording of property, plant, and equipment under the school building program for new construction by the DPWH, or Department of Public Works, which should have been included in DepEd's accounts when the completed buildings were turned over. So there's currently a reconciliation between DPWH and DepEd accountants ongoing for journal entries in both the books, both in the books of both departments, Your Honor. And despite these accounting deficiencies, the COA issued an unmodified opinion indicating DepEd's financial statements are free from material misstatements and comply with international standards. And DepEd is holding regular quarterly financial reconciliation workshops with division and regional accountants. The frequency should be increased to bi-monthly this year and the next year to expedite the resolution of these accounting deficiencies, Your Honor, including the completion of accounting records as well as accounting errors and omissions, Madam Chair.
Maraming salamat, good secretary. If there's any way na yung chair ng komite can assist the department in that reconciliation process with DPWH, with the chair of the committee of DPWH's budget, I'm sure that she wouldn't mind hearing from the good secretary.
Certainly, certainly. Thank you for the offer, Madam
Opo.
Chair.
At mabuhay yung dun sa unmodified opinion.